As long as you have people with you who are stoked to go surf, you're always like, well, I'm not going to be the one sitting on the beach. Like, I'm going to paddle out too. Scotty Questenberry, who
I was going to ask you, do you know him?
Yeah, he's like, his brother Paul
is
one of my really good friends. So I was like, I don't know, it's pretty funny. Like Scotty, Paul will get him out like once a summer. Paul actually is a really good surfer. Yeah, he shreds. Like,
is he really?
Yeah, he's super good.
That's high praise coming from you, bro.
It's pretty funny because he's just this huge like football player guy. And then all of a sudden he's like surfing and everyone's just like, dude, who's this guy? Like,
they're like, he does not belong out here.
Yeah, like it's just funny because surfers are like, it's just a way different body type compared to like someone who's playing football. You know what I mean? So then it's kind of weird when you see someone that big out in the lineup. You're just like, dude, who's this guy? Like,
this guy is massive.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
There's this guy out in Newport, massive guy. He never wears a wetsuit. Dude's like just kind of like jacked. He's got a long beard, long hair, and he's got to be on like a 6-foot board. And he's just like, he's one of those guys, like the waves coming last second, bro. All he needs to do is like a couple paddles, and he's so strong. And he's in the thing.
That's classic.
But no, Scott is awesome. He's a teammate of mine. He's the one. So we were in Cabo for a friend's wedding, and he's like, yo, this kid from my hometown is like crushing it right now. Like Jake Marshall, he's like going against these top guys, Kelly Slater, and the who's who of surfing. I'm like, no way. So I start this podcast, and I'm like, well, I've got to reach out to Jake. So I text Scott. I'm like, yo, can you help me get Jake? And then I reached out to you on IG, and you were like, I don't know. Like, yeah, dude, I'll come on your podcast.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
sure.
What? This guy responded to me. Like, let's go, dude. So I appreciate you doing this.
It's just super cool for me because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of NFL and like just other sports in general. So it's cool to be able to like kind of get and see what you like, just your thoughts on stuff too. It's pretty cool for me.
Did you grow up a Chargers fan?
Well, I actually grew up a Patriots fan because my dad's side
okay,
of the family,
Patrick, let's get this guy out of here. We'll show him the door.
I figured that's usually the reaction I get. But my grandpa and my dad's side of the family are all from like Massachusetts area, like Rhode Island. So I kind of just they're super into football, baseball, basketball.
Yeah.
So I kind of just grew up watching that, like the Patriots and just rooting for them. But then once I was like, got a little older, I'd root for the Chargers. But then once you guys moved to LA, I was like, oh, dude, like what happened? Like, you know, but I still like the Chargers. Like I watch all the games and stuff. But
so your parents are from there?
Okay, like this kind of. Okay, I'll just go straight into it.
They kind of want you to go straight into it.
Okay.
Patrick calls it the fist rule.
Sounds good.
There we go, dude.
I'll not move around too much.
Yeah. So your parents are from Massachusetts?
So
when did you guys move out here?
My mom's from Wisconsin, like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then my dad is from Providence, Rhode Island. So they went to school in Boulder, Colorado, and then they moved out to San Diego, like to Encinitas, after college, and they just liked it there a lot. And then both me and my brother were born there. And we lived there till I was like 3, and then we moved back east to Rhode Island for like only a year or 2, and then we moved to Florida actually because it was like for my dad's work and stuff. And then my youngest brother was born in Rhode Island as well. And then once we moved to Florida, I lived there till I was like 8, and then we moved back to Encinitas. So kind of like when I was younger, we moved around a bit, and then just moved back to Encinitas when I was about 8, and just been there ever since.
So in Rhode Island and Florida, maybe in Florida, but definitely not in Rhode Island, there was no surfing.
Yeah, the Rhode Island actually does have some pretty good waves, but I was so young, I wasn't going to go out when it's freezing cold. But I've surfed over there a few times. There's some nice little spots. And then once I moved to Florida, it was super hot, and the beach was nice, and I kind of like got in the water there and learned to surf there.
So were you on the Atlantic side of Florida?
I'm
assuming the Gulf doesn't get.
I was
anything.
on the Gulf side of Florida.
So the Gulf gets some swell?
Barely. It's so small over there, but it gets a little bit of swell. There's a few spots that people surf that are kind of decent.
And so at what age, you're the oldest of 3 brothers?
Yeah, oldest of 3 brothers.
Okay. And was surfing something that your dad kind of did that you guys were just interested in because he introduced it to you, or how did you guys kind of get introduced and fall in love with it?
Pretty much my dad, he liked surfing. He didn't really like start surfing until his 20s, and he didn't even really know like a ton about it. He just thought it was like a cool kind of fun thing to do. And we're like, he loves being at the beach, and just like our whole family loves going to the beach. So he's like, oh, this is something fun for the kids to do. Like just go surf, hang out, whatever. Like we go fishing or something, go surfing. And he kind of just got us into it, and we were all super young. We just liked it, and it was pretty fun. But then we kind of like figured out like, oh, you could do like contests for surfing, and you can like, this is like a full sport too. So then we started kind of figuring that side out of it. But at first it was just something fun for us to do while we were hanging out.
What age was that when you guys started realizing I'm kind of good at this and I kind of want to compete?
Yeah. I mean, I started competing even when I was like 8 or 9, like super young. And then
once that was in Florida.
Yeah. Well, no, then I was back in California then.
Okay.
But so I did a few events in Florida, like right when I kind of was just learning how to surf. But yeah, then once I was in California and I was getting super stoked on surfing, like really starting to enjoy it. Probably like, even I was like, when I was like 10, I was like, this is so fun. Like I like competing. I was a super competitive. So this was something that I was kind of good at and I like to do. And then I could compete in it. So it was kind of just a bunch of things that were super fun.
So what was that like? You were going to school, obviously. So when were you finding time to surf? I in my beginner states of surfing, I know the best times are typically in the morning. So were you just going like before school? Was your dad taking you and then you go to school? Or
yeah, pretty much. I would go super early before school and just drive straight from the beach to class, and then we'd go to class, and then I would like, whenever school ended, I'd just go straight back to the beach, usually surf all afternoon. Even one year when I was in like 6th grade, I think, I would, at lunchtime, instead of going to recess, I'd have my dad come pick me up, and I would like eat my lunch in the car to the beach and then surf for like 40 minutes and then come back for the like back half of the school day. But I was just so amped to go surf all the time. And then we kind of like worked out with the school, like, oh, like, can we just go surf instead of go to recess? Or they're like, yeah, cool. So I don't know, just trying to make as much time for it as possible, but always just going super early, like every morning. I feel like that's what kind of the routine was.
What did you love about it at such a young age that made you want to spend that much time on one particular thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just love kind of being out there just by myself, and the ocean's always changing, you know, so you always have to be like figuring out what it's doing, and kind of there's so many other factors that go into surfing. It's not something you can just kind of pick up and all of a sudden you just know exactly what's going on. Because even if you know what you're supposed to be doing on the board, the wave's just constantly changing and moving. So I always just love the ocean and kind of like just being out there and whatever. Just, it's nice just being in the water. And then, I don't know, it's so fun just being able to do whatever you want once you stand up on the wave. You can kind of, it's up to you. So I don't know, I just love the freedom of it, and just being in nature and stuff has always been probably the 2 reasons I like surfing the most.
Dude, I try to describe it to people who haven't done it. I'm like, I don't get up often, but when I do, there's no feeling like being up on a board and having just Mother Nature and the ocean just like being the thing that's propelling you.
Yeah.
It is like the coolest. It makes you realize how powerful the ocean is.
Oh, for sure.
The only thing that makes you feel the power of the ocean more is going head over the board and getting tossed down onto the ocean floor.
Yep.
But riding like the wave and just feeling like the body of water just thrust you down like the wave, bro, there's no feeling like it.
Yeah. And once like you start surfing like bigger and bigger waves and stuff, it's just, the feeling gets even more like intense. You're just like, this is crazy. Like, it's pretty crazy sometimes. And then, I don't know, just the whole, you're out there and you got to pick the right wave, and everything's got to kind of like, you got to be able to read the ocean stuff. Like, I love all that part of surfing too.
So as a kid, did you have like any reservations? Like, you'd look at the surf report and it'd be like, it's too big for me today? Or
not really. Growing up, like, it got like harder to do that as I got older, I feel like, because you just start surfing bigger and bigger waves, and then some days you're just like, it's so big out there, like, I don't know. You know, but I don't know. As long as you have people with you who are stoked to go surf, you're always like, well, I'm not going to be the one sitting on the beach. Like, I'm going to paddle out too. But I mean, around California, I feel like growing up, I never got too scared. I was always just like trying to get bigger waves or whatever. But once I got to Hawaii, I was like, found some waves that I was like, this is really fun. But then it also puts you in some pretty scary spots where you're like, okay, that maybe that was a little big. But that's what it's all about, is just kind of pushing yourself to see like how big of a wave you're going to surf. Or I don't know, that I'm not going to go surf some huge like 40-foot waves or something, but I do love trying to push myself in bigger surf.
That's one thing. So my buddy on the team, Alohi Gilman's from Hawaii and grew up surfing like Oahu, North Shore. And the thing that's different out there is it's reef breaks, right? Whereas out here, it's mostly like sand break.
Yeah, a lot of the breaks, especially up here, are all sand. Like where I live down in Encinitas, there's a lot of reef breaks, but
okay,
they're not like, it's not some big powerful reef break like it is over in Hawaii, you know, but it has a lot of the similar like characteristics. It's just kind of a smaller, a little bit mushier version.
So as you started surfing bigger waves, I guess for me, the issue with surfing a bigger wave is I'm not super consistent like with getting up. And part of that has to do with like my positioning on the wave, like it's breaking and I'm too far in versus too far out. So was it kind of just trial and error? Like you were falling on these big waves, or were you like at the point where you were pretty confident in getting up where you could go out there and not necessarily like worry about that?
I mean, that's the thing, is like you might feel confident when you're paddling out, and then even if you're having a really good session, you get a bunch of good ones. It just takes one wave to kind of catch you off guard, and you're like, just get rattled or you get super worked or whatever. But it's all kind of trial and error. I mean, that's kind of surfing in general. Even when you think you've got something figured out, you never really know what the next wave is going to throw at you.
Was there a moment in your like childhood, like growing up, middle school, high school, where you got tossed like pretty good and you were like, oh, smokes, man?
Yeah, I definitely had a few of those over in Hawaii when I was younger, when I was probably like 13, and I surfed pipeline for the first couple
You surfed
times.
pipe at 13?
Yeah, probably like 12 or 13 or something.
When it was like pumping, or?
It was kind of smaller when I first started going out there, but you just kind of work your way up. Like every session you get a little more comfortable. I mean, that wave still scares me like every time I'm out there, but it's just, you kind of the wave is so good when you get a good one, it's worth it. But it's definitely, it's no joke out there. The wave it's so powerful.
What makes that one in particular like so scary?
It's just so shallow and it's so heavy. And the wave just moves so fast. It comes in and it looks perfect, but it's not perfect. Like some of them are going to close out and some of them aren't going to be like great. So it's really, you got to pick the right wave and be able to kind of like, you got to do a lot of stuff before you even catch the wave. And then once you catch the wave, it's so difficult and it's so steep and like it moves so fast that you have to kind of, it's really like, it's kind of to me, like the pinnacle of like surfing. Cause you have to be good at every skill to be able to succeed out there. Like you can't just be a good barrel rider who doesn't know how to read the ocean, or even if you're really good at reading the ocean and which waves you're going to pick, if you pick the right wave, but you don't know what you're doing or whatever, you're going to get worked. So it's kind of like just the ultimate wave.
I guess getting back to like the learning to ride bigger and bigger waves, if it's so shallow and there's like so small room for error, like how do you have to have a couple spills where it's like you get busted up like on the reef, right?
Yeah, definitely. You just bounce off the reef
what's that feeling like when you hit the reef? Like I would think it's like pretty sharp and like cuts your wetsuit and cuts you. Yeah. And like ends your session. Like if you fall once, like your session's over.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how hard you hit the reef, but it's when you're getting slammed into something super hard or sharp like that, and there's so much power from the ocean dragging you across, you're kind of just at the will of the ocean at that point. But I don't know. I mean, everyone hits the reef, and as long as you don't break any bones or hurt yourself, like a couple cuts aren't going to really do much. So you can just get back out there, but it can be really bad. Like a lot of people have had super bad injuries. Like the one thing you really want to try to protect is your head, because if you get knocked out underwater, there's not much you can do then, and some people have had some really serious injuries out at pipe especially, but just like in general, that's the one thing in surfing that if you hit your head, you're kind of, because you're underwater, so there's not much you can do. But a lot of people are starting to wear helmets and stuff now, which I feel like 5 or 10 years ago, there's super small amount of people.
It was probably seen as like uncool.
Yeah. So now, but there's just been quite a few like pretty heavy injuries to surfers, and people are kind of waking up to the fact like maybe we should just wear helmets and be safe in some of these really big heavy waves, you know?
Yeah, I feel like I need more than a helmet out there to save me. I need a life jacket. I need everything.
Full pads.
Full pads. Yeah, I need to be in uniform.
There you go.
So was it just you like teaching yourself, or did you ever have a coach like through high school?
Yeah, I had a super good coach. This guy, Chris Gallagher, he's coached like a lot of kind of top surfers and stuff. And I started working with him. We met when I was like 12, and I kind of just worked like on and off throughout my whole kind of career with him. And I've worked with like, there's plenty of other coaches like surfing. There's so much knowledge that a lot of the older guys kind of pass along, whether it's like when you're on like the junior US team deal, they have like really good coaches when we were doing that. And then I don't know, just throughout, I feel like for everyone, like there's not a ton of people who make it all the way to the CT without having a coach in their corner at some point, you know, like some people are more natural and kind of like maybe are naturally really talented surfing wise, but then sometimes you need a coach just for like the competition side of things as well, which is like it's like two completely different things almost. Just regular free surfing is super fun and there's tons of people who are super good, but to be able to put it together in a competition format can be like really challenging.
So for the listeners who don't know, CT is the championship tour, and that's like the pinnacle of surfing, right? That's like where that's making it to the league.
Yeah.
And you just made your first one this year, right?
Yeah, this is my first year.
Bro, congrats.
Yeah, thank you. And so I just qualified for next year.
Let's go, dude.
So I have 2 years. It'll be cool.
That's rad. So in terms of you said putting it together in a competition versus just like going out there where maybe you have an hour or two to like catch your waves. What was the learning curve from going from I'm just going to the beach to surf to no, here's how you do it like competitively? Was it like paddle strength? Like what were the things you had to work on to kind of put it together?
Yeah,
in a competition?
There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I mean, I feel like I'm still learning so much now, but when I was younger, like the competition thing always came super naturally to me. Like that was something I always liked and I was always kind of good at it. Is just like, even in other sports too, like I just love competing and stuff. So that was pretty easy for me to figure out in surfing. Whereas like some surfers are super like laid back and they're just like, no, I'm not going to like paddle battle you for this wave, or I'm not going to, you know, like get in your face or whatever. Cause that's how just people have different personalities, you know? So I don't know. There's like a lot that goes into it, but you definitely want to be like a strong paddler and you want to be able to like, but now they have this priority. So like if you're out in the lineup first, you have undisputed right away for whatever wave comes in. So you don't really have to be like hassling people and like paddling around people and stuff, you know? It's more about like sitting there and waiting and choosing the right wave that is going to suit your surfing, or that's going to be like one of the better waves of the 30 minutes that you have out there, because everyone surfs really good once you get to a certain level. So if whoever's on those really good waves is going to have an advantage, you know, over the rest of the field. Just
when did they put the priority in?
Probably like the championship tours had priority for a while, but on the qualifying level, they probably put it on like 5 or 6 years ago. So that was kind of like a huge game changer for everybody. Just it made
before that, was it just like a scramble, like a madhouse?
For sure. I mean, you'd have some people who like they weren't even that good at surfing, but they're such strong paddlers, they would just like catch 2 waves and not let you catch another wave for like the rest of your heat, and then you'd lose. And it's just like, it's pretty crazy. That one was like, you had to be super tactical and like really strong in like a lot of different areas. Besides, surfing was almost like an afterthought, because if you're not catching a wave, you can't surf. So
that's my issue when I go out now, is like, I'm like, oh man, there's a great wave like 20 yards to the right, but I'm like, I can't get there and then paddle into the wave and have enough like strength. Bro, I mean, we train like every day, and I'm lifting 3 to 4 times a week, and I'd consider myself a pretty strong guy in the upper body. There is nothing more humbling for me than getting out there on a board and just getting out there and catching like 1 or 2 waves, and my shoulders are smoked.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird muscle to like train, because I feel like you never can get in that position unless you're paddling.
Do you do like any like weight training to like, or is it mostly just in the water swimming?
No, I do a lot of training, probably like 3-4 days a week, like lifting weights or doing whatever. I work at this place called Nakoa down in Carlsbad, and I don't know, I'd started working out there when I was probably like 18 or something, and that helped me a lot. Like, it definitely, you feel a lot better when you're in good shape and feel strong. And I mean, for me, I had to put a little bit of weight on too, because I was kind of skinny, and like, just now so many people, like, everyone takes it so seriously. Like, everyone is a really good athlete, and people are strong, and people are like in shape. So it's no joke. Like, the level of competition is pretty high now.
Why would you want to put on weight?
Just for like, so when you're surfing, like, if I do a turn and the spray that kind of comes out the back, like, some people, if you're bigger, you're gonna throw more spray, or just
and the judges like see that, and that's like a visual. Surf
with power. Like, some of the bigger guys, like Jordy Smith or something, he surfs like, he's so big, but when he lays onto a turn, it's like he puts so much power into it that you're just like, wow, that was amazing, And then but I mean, it's not like there's like, even Kelly Slater is probably only like 5'9" maybe, and he surfs with a ton of power, and he can do whatever, So it's kind of just being strong within your own body. You don't need to be like some super yoked kind of person, but you got to be strong in certain areas.
In terms of like competition, I feel like surfing could be really frustrating because you're at the mercy of the ocean, and you can't control like when the sets are coming in. Like, I could go out here in Newport at 10 o'clock and surf from 10 to 11, and maybe the sets were outstanding. And as somebody was coming off the beach at 10, they're like, it was all right today, but it was great for me.
Yep.
So how do judges take that into account? Like, during a competition, if say heat 2 they just had way better waves than heat 3.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, in a competition, you're only going versus the person who's in your heat. So even if I make my heat with only 10 points, but the guy in the next heat gets like 16 points, it doesn't matter to me. Like, we both were able to advance through our round, So it's really just you versus the other guy who's in your heat, which is like usually just man on man format like that. And it's kind of just like, if you get a slow heat, then you got to be able to kind of adjust while you're out there and like make good decisions on what you're supposed to do. But it's brutal. Like, sometimes you just don't know. You got to have a little bit of luck on your side. I mean, you can read the ocean and like watch for like an hour or two before as much as you want, but you just don't really know. I mean, a lot of the swells move in like patterns. You kind of are able to like recognize how long, like, if it's a long period swell, it's going to be a long wait in between sets. And if it's short period, there'll probably be like more opportunities and a little bit faster pace on the sets. But there's just tons of stuff where you got to be able to kind of predict what you think is going to happen, like with the tide and the swell and just all that stuff, to be able to factor it in. But even though sometimes you feel like you know what's going to happen, you go out and the ocean just goes flat for 30 minutes, and you just like have to adjust and try to make the best out of what you got.
Bro, I got to think guys like lose heats off like getting impatient because there's like a long wait period, and maybe they try to like muscle into a wave that they should have waited for the next, and then they lose because,
for sure.
And there's got to be a massive mental battle out there of like, man, do I take this one? Do I not?
It's definitely, so much of surfing and competition is mental. I mean, just making good decisions. Like, if you don't make any mistakes in your heat, or even 1 or 2 mistakes that are small, you're going to make almost all of your heats, but sometimes the waves will just be really good and everyone gets a chance, and it's just like more of a surf contest. Everyone's just surfing, and whoever surfs the best will make it. But it's definitely not always like that. Like, majority of the time, it's about making good decisions and picking good waves.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about your journey like to the championship tour. Obviously, you just qualified this year for your first one, and sounds like you're going you qualified for next year. But what are like the tours? Like how do kids like end up getting on the championship tour? They're like juniors, like the qualifying series or something?
Yeah, so you have the junior tour, which everyone kind of starts out on. It's like 18 and under or something like that. It used to be
And
20.
anybody can like sign up to go do it?
Yeah, anyone can enter those. And
Okay.
that's like, I think, yeah, pretty much anyone can do it. And then you do that, and there'd be like a world junior event where you kind of qualify like top 4, I think, in your region to make it there. And then that's like the best of like the 18 and unders. But that doesn't really have, even if you if you win, it's just like a good title to have, and like it helps you like gain recognition, but it doesn't help you like actually get onto the championship tour. So that's just like a good practice kind of area for like a lot of kids coming up. And then after that is like,
did they move the age?
It used to be 20 and under, and then now it's 18 and under.
Why did they change that?
Well, what happened is like a lot of people were qualifying for the championship tour, and they're only like 18. So they were like doing the juniors, and then they'd be on the championship tour. And the WSL, like the World Surf League, was like, okay, like maybe these kids are getting like so good, we got to drop the age to 18 because it's just like the level is getting so high with the younger kids. But yeah, like I remember it was one year when Gabriel Medina and John Florence, they both qualified in the same year, and they were like super young. And Gabriel was 17, I think, and he won 2 of the first like 5 events that he did on the championship tour, and everyone was just like, dude, this kid's like 17 years old or 18 years old, just like beating everybody. And then everyone, like people, just that expectation kind of got put on to like the younger kids, like, well, dude, this guy's like only 18 and he's like already here. And then they kind of,
but this guy's like a Tom, like a once in a generation, like a Jordan.
Like, there's not many people like that, you know, but there was like probably a period of like 5 years where like there was a good amount of people qualifying for the tour when they're 18. And yeah, so that was kind of like, they shifted the age, and then I think they might have actually shifted it back this year or last year to 20 because they just realized like, okay, those were just,
that was
like,
an outlier.
Yeah, that was an outlier. But yeah, to like once you're done with the juniors, you're usually like 18 or 19, and then you start kind of doing the qualifying series, which is like they kind of change it a bit, but it's like you start at like the regional level, and then once you get top 10 in your region, you move to like the next level, which is like if you get top 10 in, that's like with the top 96 guys in the world. So then you got to get top 10 in that, and then you go to the championship tour.
So can anybody enter the qualifying series just like the juniors?
Yep, anyone can enter the qualifying series, and then they're all held like regionally. So there's like the North America region, South America region, like Africa, Asia, Europe, and Hawaii, and like Tahiti have their own region, and then Australia. Yeah. So top 10 in each one of those regions are invited to like the next level, which is like it's like a 8-stop tour, and then the top 10 from that moves up to the world tour.
When did you start doing the qualifying
Probably
series?
when I was like, I think I was like 18. So I probably did like 4 years on the qualifying series, and then we had COVID, so we didn't do any for like a year and a half, and then my 5th year was the one that I made it. But it's definitely like a long process, you know, like there's a few people who just go straight through it and kind of like just blitz their way onto the tour, and they just figure it out super quick. But then there's a lot of people who kind of like, it takes a little bit to kind of like learn. For me, like it was just all the traveling and being on my own and kind of all that stuff. Like you learn a lot, you know, you're flying all across the world, like by yourself pretty much, just like trying to figure out what's going on, you know. But it's definitely, it can be like a pretty steep learning curve for sure.
What was that first year on the qualifying series like for you?
For me, it was super fun. I mean, it's like you're with your buddies and you're like going to all these cool new places, checking it out. But it
When
definitely,
you say your buddies, is that just you happen to have a lot of friends who were also good enough to be competing, or is it just like the best of the best just kind of know each other? No, do all like the best surfers for the U.S., the North, I think you said the North America like region, are
yeah.
they like Hawaii, California based?
Yeah, like there's a good amount on the East Coast as well. Like Florida has a lot of good surfers, and then even just like the Carolinas and stuff have a few good surfers.
And you
as
just
well.
get to know them through the juniors and competing.
I mean, a lot of us have been competing against each other since we were like 10 or super young, you know. So just doing the events and surfing around, like you get to know each other pretty well. And it's also, it's like you have your friends at home too, you know, but at the same time, when you're on the road for like 8 or 9, 10 months out of the year, it's like you're with your surf buddies who you're doing like the tour with almost the whole year. And then you're home for like 2 months. So you only get to see your friends from home. There's just not many people who like are kind of on that same schedule as you know, so you get pretty close with the people who you travel with.
What is that? So is surf season just year round? Like when you're in the qualifying series?
Yeah, pretty much. It starts in like, I don't know, it starts in usually like December, January, and you got to qualify. And then they just had the first event. It finished yesterday for the qualifying series. So it's pretty much year round. I mean, you probably get like a month or two off, but it's definitely pretty intense, like year round competition. And even they've changed the format. Like just this year is like the first go around with the new format, but the old one, it was still it's only like 2 months off throughout the year, just because there's pretty good waves throughout the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there's definitely something to be said about having off season. It's super nice to be able to work.
Gotta have an off season.
Gotta work on your body and like just kind of, especially if you're dealing with any injuries or anything. But it's pretty taxing, like physically and mentally doing it. It's pretty brutal.
So what's the difference? You said the old versus the new format. What kind of are the differences? What did they change?
They just changed the way that you would qualify like for those top events.
Mm-hmm.
Like it used to be, you would have to travel outside of your region to get points to move into like the higher rated events. Whereas now you just stay in your region. And if you don't make it, you have like 8 months till the next year starts where you can try to make it again. Whereas before it'd just be a year round thing for everybody. Even if you're trying to make it into the top rated events, but you're having a bad year, you're still competing almost all year. So I think this way will be good for people who like don't have sponsor support and they can just work and be able to like make a living for themselves and then if they want to still try every year, you can try to make it through the regionals. And if you don't make it, it's not like you just traveled the world for 10 months and spent like 30 grand and then you're like in some huge financial hole. Or if you want to be able to go to school, it's good for like a lot of kids who are able to like go to school and then focus on the regional events for a couple months. But then if you make it, you're like, cool, I got a chance to go to the world tour in these next like few events. Or you're like, oh, I didn't make it. I can just kind of like figure out what I'm going to do and then try again next year or whatever, just because there's not like a ton of like, it's definitely like as a surfer, you don't really make much from the WSL, or like it's kind of different than a lot of other sports. Like the money you make is mostly from your sponsors or just like endorsements kind of outside of like the main surf league. So it's kind of like a tricky one, like where if you don't have that support, it's hard to be able to make ends meet and just kind of like pay your bills, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, when you're traveling the world, like how you're obviously not able to hold a job.
Yeah.
So how are you making ends meet? How are you doing it when you were on the qualifying series? I got to think there's little to no money in terms of the competition, you know, the prize money.
The prize money is low, like on the Challenger series. Like we're trying to, hopefully they can like help change that in the next year or two just to make it more sustainable for people. But I mean, it's brutal. Like you're on the road, and if you don't make it, you lose like $20,000 to $30,000 probably. And then you got to try it all again the next year. And then you only have a few months when you're at home to have a job. I mean, mostly people just try to make it work by just like getting little sponsorships here and there and kind of doing little things, but it's really tough. Like a lot of people I know would be like working construction when they're home for a few weeks and then like go to the surf event and come home working in like construction or in a restaurant or something. Like it's definitely like you got to really, really want to do it. It's full on. It's a huge commitment.
So what were you doing in those years where you didn't make it? It sounds like you did it 5 times before you actually got on the championship tour.
Yeah.
What were you doing?
So at the beginning I had like good sponsor support and I was able to like do it and still like make a little bit of money and it was like pretty good. And then after I didn't make it for like my first year or two, and then I had like a couple injuries and I kind of like lost a bit of my, like almost all of my sponsors. So then the next few years, the next 2 years I kind of like was able to like have some money saved and stuff and be able to use that. And then last year I was like, during COVID and everything, I was like working in a restaurant, just kind of like serving tables, like bussing tables and stuff like that. And just to like get some money to be able to do the next few events and not have to just like dig into my savings or whatever. So I was just like working in a restaurant, just kind of like doing that. And I was definitely pretty overworking at the restaurant by the end of this summer. And I was like, I'm ready to get on this tour. But
how do these young surfers initially like get sponsorship deals? Do they have like agencies that represent them, or are you just like reaching out to brands on your own?
A lot of it is just like there'll be like brands who like are at like the young, like the amateur events and stuff, and they just kind of see kids who are like they think are good, and you get picked up by then. And it's definitely changed a lot. When I was young, people were making like a ton of money surfing, and like even like younger kids were getting like big contracts and stuff. And now it's a bit more like, you know, you might get some support when you're younger, but the brands are trying to wait more until you're actually at an age where you're going to need the money to be able to do the events and stuff like that. But it's a tricky one. Like there's agents and agencies, and some people are able to like have that, and then other people it's just kind of their parents and them trying to figure it out.
So what was that season like when you like went through the injury? I think I read like you like separated your shoulder like a few times.
Yeah, I had, when I was like 18, I dislocated my shoulder like a bunch of times.
And this was in the qualifying series?
This was when I was doing the series, but then it's like we didn't have any off season or anything, so I was just kind of like trying to just go through it and push through it. And then eventually I was like I wasn't really doing like good surfing, and I was losing a bunch, and I was like, I need to just kind of deal with this. And then I don't know, like then I didn't have any injuries for a couple years, and then I like kind of messed up my other shoulder there's the same thing, like just it kept dislocating. And that happened like right before the last year when I qualified. So that was like it was kind of frustrating to have it happen like right then. But it's like, it is what it is, you know? So I don't know, at least it's not like my knee or something like that, but I'm still kind of dealing with it now. And now that I have made it through to next year, I'll have like a nice off season after August, I think. And then I'll be able to get surgery and kind of like reset and deal with it then.
So is that something like, I guess qualifying at this point kind of gives you a sigh of relief? It sounds like these guys and gals are they're hustling, and it's a year-round deal to try and like make it. Now that you've made it, it kind of gives you that flexibility to like take care of your body and do the things you need to do.
For sure. Like that was the biggest part of trying to get on the tour for me, is like it just gives you way more time to be able to like work on your body and also just kind of work on your surfing as well. Like it's tough when you're competing like 10 months out of the year to improve on new skills or whatever, because you're just trying to master what you have already, like for the events that you're doing. So I know it's definitely going to be nice to have like some time off. I mean, just with COVID, the last year and a half, we had a big break anyways then, but it'll be good to have another break and be able to kind of reset.
Dude, I see the same thing in young athletes, whatever sport it is, but obviously mine being football. You have all these young kids in high school who are just hustling, trying to earn a college scholarship. and they're working out year round. Their body's getting no break, but they're young, so they can kind of like get away with it. They're doing all these camps in the summer, and then they get to college, and these college strength programs are running these kids like into the ground. I mean, the universities are like, well, let's get the most out of our investment. They're paying $250,000, to have these kids on their roster per year. And so these kids are getting worked in the ground, and then they get to the pros, and the kids don't know any different.
Yeah.
They're like, this is how I've done it my whole life. And like the vets in the locker room are like, bro, like,
you just got to chill out.
You need to relax.
Yeah.
Like you need to like take care of your body, or you're not going to last like in this thing. And it sounds like it's the same with surfing.
For sure.
Like you got these young cats on the championship tour who are like, they get a little off time and they're like, man, I got to get after it. And you're like, pump the brakes. Like,
I feel like I'm definitely like in the like younger crew and still kind of trying to figure all that out. But just through dealing with injuries and stuff, it's like, it kind of sucks when you're doing it, but you start to learn a lot of stuff about maybe what you could do better to like prevent that the next time and stuff like that.
Was there a low point where like in the time you were trying to like make it on the championship tour where you ever thought about like maybe, pursuing this isn't for me and I should just get a job and like just enjoy surfing?
Yeah, for sure. Like, right. It was kind of right at the beginning for me because I had like a really good amateur career and all this stuff. And I like was like able to, when I was going into the qualifying series, I was like, oh, I'm probably going to like be able to do pretty good at this. Like some of my peers had like qualified like right as they started doing it. And I was like, cool, like, let's see what this is about. Like, I'm going to do good. Like you have that like irrational confidence probably. But then I had like a tough year where I just wasn't making any heat. And then I was kind of dealing with this injury thing. And then I knew I had to get surgery at the end of the year. And like all my contracts were up too at the end of the year. So I was kind of just pushing through to try to like have something to like present to my sponsors at the end of the year. Like, hey, well, I didn't have the best year doing this, but like I tried to like film a bunch and make like edits and stuff like that. So I kind of just ran myself like into the ground a bit that year. And then at the end of the year, I pretty much like all my sponsors were just like, well, I don't know, like we can't really make it work. And I was just like, damn, like now I got to go get surgery. Like lost all of my sponsorship, which is great, like financially, but also just the support that they give you is super awesome too, So I was
to be recognized by like one of those brands, like a Hurley athlete or a Nike athlete, like it gives, I don't know, in a sport that's like individual like that, like golf or surfing or tennis, like it gives you some name like recognition.
It makes you feel like a pro a bit, like when you don't have any sponsors and you're kind of like, well, I'm not really making any money from surfing. Like, am I even a pro? Like, am I just an amateur
you feel like a
surfer?
pretender.
Yeah. So I don't know. When I was kind of dealing with like all that, I was just like, if I was thinking like, should I just go to school? Like, is like, cause I knew if I wanted to make it happen, I was like, this isn't going to be some cakewalk, easy road for me to like, kind of like deal with this adversity and get to the level that I need to get to. Cause it wasn't like I was just going to heal from my surgery and be like, well, last year I finished like 120th. Like I got to get way better than that if I'm going to make it. So it was like more of just a mental commitment of being like, you already put all this work in throughout your whole amateur career and all this stuff. Like you're going to give up like on the first kind of like big speed bump you face, like, and I was just like, no, like I'm going to like try my best at least. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but I'm not going to just give up when I'm like 19 and just kind of walk away from something that I love to do.
Was there someone that was like really important and, I don't know, instilling that belief in you or kind of walked you through that season, like a coach or a parent or a friend?
I mean, I have a great like family and support system and everything. But for me that year, I was like, I just traveled with my friends and I didn't bring any coach or like any sort of like family members. Like I used to go to the events with my dad a lot. And then I kind of was just like, I think I need to learn some of these lessons like on my own and kind of grow up a little bit. Sometimes when it's just weird when it's like an individual sport, cause you got to look in the mirror and be like, well, I lost, like, that's my fault. Like there's no one else to point the finger to or whatever, So I think for me just to like kind of be on my own and deal with like, I can come in and be like, Dad, like we should have went to this other peak. I was like, it was all, I had to take accountability for a lot of stuff. So that was like huge for me. And I definitely learned a lot that year. I think I finished like 25th that year maybe. So I was like, okay, like I'm moving in the right direction. And then, the next.
And this was after you recovered from the injury. You had lost your sponsors. So were you just self-funding, like you're traveling? And
yeah, pretty much. Like I was just kind of, I was lucky enough to have such like rad sponsors for a long time. So I was able to like save.
You had a little
money.
bit of a savings.
Yeah. And I was just like, cool, like whatever, I'm going to use this and try and just make it happen pretty much. And then I did like 2 years of that. And I finished like 13th and 25th or something. So I was like right there both years to being in the top 10.
And then COVID hit.
And
what's the line? Like when you say you finished 13th, you got to finish top 10.
The line is 10th, but then the year that I got 13th, the line was actually 12 because two people had like made it from the tour and on the qualifying series. So it was like they had 2 extra spots, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so I missed it by like 1 spot pretty much. And that was just super hard. I was like, oh my God, I was so close. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's like one more heat or one guy doesn't make his heat and you're on, you know? And then it was just weird because I was getting ready for the next year. Like we were in Australia. We did the first 2 events and then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, like huge halt, like everyone go home. You know, like we weren't really sure what was going to happen. And then for us, they ended up getting the championship tour season done like through COVID, which was cool.
Yeah.
But for us who are on the qualifying series, like we didn't have any events for like a year and a half probably. So it's pretty tough. Like you're so locked into like, this is what you're doing and you're competing and you're traveling and doing all this. And then all of a sudden you're home for like a year and you're just like, whoa, it's just a huge switch up. But it ended up being good for me to just kind of like take a break for a little bit and just fully be able to like let go of that past season before I started doing events again.
So what were you doing in that? You were working as you said a busser?
Yeah, I was like, at first I had no experience, you know, so I was like, can I just get a job? Like,
someone hire me, please.
So I was like hosting and busing and just being like, cool, like whatever. And then I ended up like serving, which was better, make a little more money that way.
In terms of your surfing, did you have a coach? Were you just doing a lot on your own? How do they do it? Do you like film your sessions where you can like go back and watch and like be like, you know, I needed to get up quicker here, you know, make a turn or maybe grab, you know, my rail here?
Yeah, filming's super important because you're able to kind of watch back what you're doing, you know, like you can feel like you're doing something good, but maybe when you watch the video, it looks way different than you think in your head. So yeah, filming is like pretty crucial.
Yeah, I don't hate the filming, but in football, they film everything. Yep. They film the walkthroughs, they film practice, they film the games. And so it kind of like forces you to be better in a sense because if you have a bad game, the worst feeling is going in like Monday where you're going to have to sit in front of all your peers and like watch what you did.
And people are just going to grill you.
They're going to grill you.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Where did in that year, did your like surfing game get like, were there any things like specifically you worked on where you're like, you know, I finished 13th, but in order to get on the championship tour to qualify, like, man, I really need to improve these things?
Yeah, I definitely worked on a few things, you know, like there's always so much stuff that you can kind of work on with surfing. It seems like you're never going to master it. You know what I mean? So you're always kind of trying to improve on little things. But I was able to just kind of like just figure out a few things in my surfing, like mostly like in my like flow a little bit and just kind of like getting through maneuvers like a little quicker through the transition and stuff. But mostly I was just having like a lot of fun with it. Like during the year, like it was cool to just be home and surf with all my friends. And we did a bunch of road trips up to Santa Cruz and Santa Barbara and just kind of surfed up the coast. And it was just a really like good time. And you kind of just remember like the best part about surfing is surfing, you know, like even if you can't compete, it doesn't really matter. You can always go surf. So that's a
big thing.
Yeah.
People lose like the passion and love for their sport and it kind of just becomes a drag and like a job. I feel like the people that do it for the longest are the ones that have those moments where like they remember it truly is for the love of the game. Yeah, I'm making a living off doing this, but if that's your only reason for being in it, like
Yeah.
You're not going to last.
And I was like, at that point, I was like, dude, like, I'm working at a restaurant sucks. Like, I got to make this tour. And like, but at the same time, I was like, I'm going to have a ton of fun whenever I go back on the road again, because I was like, this is sick. This is what I'm doing for my job. Like, I'm getting to go to Europe and be surfing events over there, and like go to Hawaii and do events. It's so cool, you know? So it's good to remember that.
What was that moment like when you qualified for the tour, the championship tour?
It was pretty funny. I was just in the kitchen with my brother, and I was just making lunch, and then someone had like the event was going on in Haleiwa in Hawaii, and I'd made my heat earlier in the morning, but a couple guys, like, I was like still going, you know, so I knew if I made my next heat, I was good. But then a couple of people ended up losing out, and it like just confirmed my spot. And I was,
were you in Hawaii at this point? Okay.
I was in Hawaii, so I was just like not really expecting it, and I was just like, oh, sick. Like,
so you surfed, you made your heat, which means you advanced in the competition.
I advanced to the next round, so I was just kind of like back at home, just waiting to like
and you just have an Airbnb with your brother? Or?
Yeah, pretty much. So
okay, so you're slapping up a sandwich,
yeah.
and the guys ahead of you did not qualify, so you were going to have more points than those guys,
exactly.
And it kind of solidified.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting because like usually in your head you think like, oh, I'm going to make my heat, and that's going to put me over the edge points wise to be able to make it, and you'll know like at the beach. So then I was kind of funny because I was just like, well, there was no like, oh yes, like I made my heat and I made the tour, this is so awesome. I was just like kind of just hanging out. And then
so when you went and surfed in your next heat, what was that like? Were you just like, shoot, I made it? Like,
yeah, I was like,
you're surfing free, you're free of any like type of needing to.
It's a huge switch up because I've been in the position where I needed to make my heat and I didn't make it, and then you don't qualify, and it's just like you see people on the beach who are dealing with that same emotion, you know, or they're super stressed out because they're right on the bubble. And I was just able to go surf and just have fun, and I wasn't really worried about much. But it's a weird feeling. Like that was one of the only events I've ever done where there was really like the only thing on the line was for me to try to just do good for myself. And so that was pretty cool. And now the last 5 events of the season for me this year are kind of going to be a little bit similar because this year they did the requalify. Like they cut 10 guys off of the tour after 5 events, which is like they did that in like 2011, but this year they brought it back to be able to, I know that it's like their whole new tour strategy.
How many guys make the tour?
There's 34 or 32 guys
in the world.
Yeah.
So 32 guys in the world, and it starts in January.
Yep.
So it goes January to
like August or so.
Okay, so there's a nice little off season.
This is the first year. Like usually ever since I can remember, it goes February to December. So this is like going to be pretty cool for everybody, I think.
And so they cut 10 guys off after 5 events, and if you make that cut, those 22 guys requalify
for the next year.
And what happens to the 10 guys who didn't make it?
So they had to go straight into the challenger, like the qualifying series.
Back to the nitty gritty, where all these guys like you who were coming up are trying.
They're all ready to go. Like, okay, this is our opportunity. And then it was crazy. Like we're all in Western Australia, and then people like fall off, and then they have to fly straight to the other side of Australia, and the event starts in 3 days. And it's like your whole new season just like starts just like that. So it's pretty. I was excited that I didn't have to deal with that mentally, but that's got to be pretty brutal. You pretty much like lose your job, and then you got to like go figure out how to get it back in like 2 days.
So were there any more cuts? I was looking on like the World Surf League, the WSL website, and it was like the final 5 cut off, the final moving forward to like the next 5 events. What? Yeah,
the only thing that's on the line, it's the final 5. So if you make it to that, then you can go for the world title, which is at Trestles this year in September.
No way.
So like right now I'm kind of far back. I'm like 19th or 20th, so I'd have to probably do pretty like really good to make it to that. But that's kind of everyone who's in these last 5 events goal is to be able to like get into that final 5. Because if you don't get in the final 5, it's no harm, no foul. Like, you're still on the tour for next year, but it's definitely like going for the world title is like everyone's goal and dream. So that's kind of like what everyone's striving for now.
So the next 5 events, is that separate from the 10 events? Like, is that the 11th event?
Yeah, it's only the 5 people who qualified do it. And then it's just like, because it used to be like over a season long period, they'd do the world champion, you know, so you would do points over the whole 10 events. And then they kind of were like looking for a way to be able to have it so it all happens on like one day, you know? So it's kind of like, it's almost, they kind of try to take a page out of like the Super Bowl or something like that to be like, okay, like, because it would be lame if it was like just the regular season for the NFL and you're like, well, these guys they were 15-2, like, they win the Super Bowl. You know, so now they're trying to be like, okay, it's like one day, everyone's top 5 are in, and everyone's against each other. Winner.
And they're all 5 in the same heat.
So it goes 5 surfs against the 4 seed. So if you're like the 5th guy and you barely make it in, you have like a pretty steep uphill battle.
Gotcha.
Then you got to win that heat. Then you got to surf against the 3rd best surfer. You got to win that heat. And then you go against the 2nd best surfer. You got to win that heat to get a chance against the number 1 rated guy. So the number 1 guy kind of just sits there all day and he's just like waiting to see who he's going to surf against.
Yeah.
So it definitely skews it to like, because the person who finished first.
Yeah, it gives you an advantage for doing what. It's the same thing in the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
You get a bye if you know you're the top seed. You know, play the weaker team, the team with the worst schedule if you're the 2-3, and you get home field advantage.
Yeah, there's all those little things. So it's good to have that because like the person who qualifies first or second, they had a better year, so they should definitely have some sort of advantage, you know.
So what is the format of the competition? Is it just everybody seeded 1 through 32 in the 10 main events for the championship tour? And how do you get seeded? Is it just random draw?
No, it's just based off the points. So if you like, I don't know, whoever's doing good has more points than everyone else. So if you're in first, it's because you probably won an event and like made a final somewhere.
And so you start out that next competition surfing against
so
one of the guys who didn't do as good?
Exactly. So everyone comes into the year with a seed from the last year. So if you finish 15th the year before, you start the next year as 15th overall. And if you lose early after the first event, you might like drop back a couple.
Sure.
If you do good, you'll probably move up a little bit, but it just goes like 1 versus 32, 2 versus 31. So the highest rated people are surfing against the lower seeds. And then in the middle, it's kind of like 15 versus 16, 17 versus 18, or whatever like that.
Have you ever surfed against anybody? You're like, whoa, I grew up watching you.
Yeah,
like,
I had.
I mean, there's some guys on the tour like Kelly Slater's like 50.
Yeah, I had him in my very first event at Pipe. I had Kelly, and I was just like going out in my heat, just like, this is so weird. Like, I've watched Kelly my whole life. He won the Pipe Masters in '92 6 years before I was even born. He'd already won Pipe like 5 or 6 times, and I hadn't even been born yet. And I was just like, I can't believe this guy's still doing this. But I mean, he won the event. Like, it's crazy. Like, Kelly is definitely, that was my first comp too. So I was just like, this is like pretty surreal to surf against.
Was it just you and him out there?
Yeah. Like, I made it through they have like an opening round where it's like 3 people, and then you got to make it through that. And then it goes to the man-on-man format. So I was like, it's kind of like your first like real heat, you know, like the 3-man is like, it's not like a warm up, but the first round is non-elimination, so you don't lose. And then the second round is another 3-man. So you just got to get second to move on. But then once you get in the man-on-man, it's like, okay, the contest is like really getting underway here. And then, I drew Kelly, and I was just like, well, I don't know how good my odds are in this one, but got to just kind of try your best. Like, it's crazy surfing against him at a wave that he's the best at, you know. So certain waves, like,
he's known for surfing pipe.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably, I don't know if he's the best pipe surfer ever, but he's got to be. He's got to be up there. Yeah, he's one of them for sure.
So getting into kind of closing out, little bit of Q&A. Who was like your favorite surfer growing up?
Growing up, for me, there's a lot of guys, but I watched a lot of Dane Reynolds just because he's from California, and he always would make videos in California, so I felt like I could like watch them and relate to them way more than people making videos and they're in like Indo or Hawaii or something, and I'm just like, dude, those waves look insane, but I'm never gonna see those waves here in California
on the day to day.
Yeah, like so. Dane was always someone I watched a ton of just because he was always posting videos like in California and like kind of bad waves, and I was like, oh, this is like perfect. Like I can see what he's doing in the same. You can kind of see what's possible in such bad kind of conditions. You know, it's tough to watch someone at a perfect wave and then you go out of your home break and you're like, I can't do that because the wave is just not gonna let me. So I probably watch Dane the most.
What's that like, surfing a break and you become so familiar with it and then having to go compete somewhere and not having the reps?
Yeah, that's what this year was so hard being a rookie on the tour. Like I'm going to all these spots and they're all new to me. And it's tricky. I mean, you know, each spot, they all have their totally different personalities and different lineups you're supposed to be at, and just like the way the wave moves with the tide is so, it's super important to know all that stuff, you know. So it's tough to figure it out on the fly, but you kind of just got to use your like knowledge from maybe different breaks you've surfed that are kind of similar to what you're at now. But it's definitely experience in the waters like trumps everything at anytime you go to a new spot.
I'm inserting a question for myself in the mailbag here. What determines whether or not you get pulled like by jet skis? Is it just the size of the wave?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, some waves people are pretty crazy now. Like the stuff that they paddle into is so big. Like people probably never thought that would even be possible like 15 years ago. And now it's just kind of like any wave you can paddle into it if you really want to, you know. So it's just people kind of testing the limit of how big they want to surf and how big they want to paddle. I mean, there's certain waves you can't paddle into because it's just too fast and you're never going to be able to drop in before the wave breaks, you know. Like if it's huge at Chopu or something like that, you can't catch it once it gets to a certain size. But I don't know, it's definitely it's kind of just up to the surfers. Like if they think they can paddle it, most people will just probably try to paddle it. But if they're like, that wave's still really good, but it's too big to paddle, we'll just tow in.
I guess in a competition setting, though.
Oh, in a competition
I feel like I've
setting?
seen competition settings where there's jet skis.
Yep.
And guys are getting, you know, pulled and then pulled back out. But some competitions, it's like, oh, smokes, you got to paddle all the way back around. Like what determines?
Usually if there's just enough, if it's like a long paddle out, they'll want to use the jet skis just because it gives everyone more opportunities. But if it's a short, like a beach break, where it's just a short paddle out, even if it's kind of like an intense one, they'll just have you paddle just because you can honestly probably make it back out faster paddling than getting a ski and having to like go through the beach break. But they want to make sure everyone gets as many chances as they can. And so the skis, they help a lot for sure.
Okay. What's your favorite home break here in California, and then your favorite break in the world?
My favorite home break's just like Seaside Reef. That's like my home spot. So I don't know, it's not the best wave, but it's super fun and it's kind of just where I've grown up surfing. So I love going back and always just like going surfing there is always super nice. And I know the wave super good. So I kind of like know which ones are good and know like everybody there. It's just nice to go home.
Is it a right? Is it a left?
It's kind of both. Depends on the tide. If it's like a low tide, there's a good left out the back. If it's high tide, there's kind of like a beach break on the inside. So it gives you all the faces of the waves, I guess.
Dude, that's so cool hearing you talk about it. You're like, I know this, know that.
Yeah.
That's wild. What's the biggest wave you've ever surfed?
I don't know. Maybe like, I guess like 20-foot face. I don't know. I don't really measure the wave or just kind of like see how big it is, but I don't know. It's a couple big ones, I guess, but I'm never like surfing huge waves at like Mavericks or something like that or Jaws. I don't know. Probably not up my alley.
There are some gnarly, like, I feel like big wave surfing is a lot different than probably the surfing on like the championship tour.
Yeah, it's way different. Like just the shape you have to be in. I mean, I guess not all guys are in crazy, but when you're getting held down for like 45 seconds it's a whole nother sport to me. I mean, watching those guys is like, it's such a skill in itself to be able to just, you have to like have no fear and just be like so confident that you're going to make it, even though you're probably not going to make it, which is like the craziest part. And then you're underwater for so long, like being underwater for 30 seconds while the waves just smash
and
you.
it feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
When you're being held under, it feels way longer
If you
than
actually
when you're
time-
actually just peacefully sitting underwater.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually time how long you're underwater in the ocean, like on your average day, it's so short. And it feels like you're under
10 or
there
15 seconds and you're
Yeah.
like gasping.
for sure. It's like a 4-second. You're underwater for like 4 seconds. And you come up and you're like, what was that, like 20 seconds? Like I was under there forever. But then I can't imagine what it would be like to be held down for like 40 seconds. That must feel like you're under there for like 4 minutes. I mean, I've been held down for a bit, maybe like.
What's the longest you've been held down for?
I don't know, maybe like 15 or 20 seconds. I mean, it's kind of tough to say. Like you don't really know when you're under there.
Yeah.
But there's definitely sometimes you come up and you're just like kind of seeing stars a little bit. Like I was under there for a while.
And when you're under like that, or my neighbor was saying, like, you just got to kind of go like limp and like ball up a little bit and like it'll plop you up.
Yeah. If you
When you got held down that long time, were you like trying to get to the surface
well, at first you got to just be super mellow and kind of just let go, because you can't fight the ocean. You're going to lose every time. But then once you're like starting to like, sometimes you're under you're so deep that you have to like swim to get to the top, you know? So then you're swimming and you're just like, dude, how long is this? Like I'm still swimming up.
And then the next wave hits.
That's the worst. If you get 2 waves, like then you're under for a while. That's pretty brutal. So
Dang.
got to try to avoid the 2 wave.
So you've never been to like Nazare or like Mavericks when it's pumping?
Nope. I've like, some of my buddies do it and I'm just like, I don't know, maybe one day in my life, but not right now.
You're good, bro. You stay on that championship tour and
I'm
you
like,
keep lighting it up, bro.
Yeah, like I'm like surfing pipe and stuff, and I'm like, this is heavy enough for me. Like these waves are like, I guess it's a different scenario. Like some people say like, oh, it's different when you're surfing like a Mavericks because it's more of a drop. It's not like, but I don't know. To me, it's just like when you see like one of those huge like 50-foot waves, you're just like, dude, I don't know, that wave, if you fall, it's going to be a long hold down.
There's literally no room for error.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I love like the adrenaline of like being on a big wave and all that stuff, you know? So I don't know, maybe one day I'd get into it, but probably not now.
All right. Last question. What's the coolest trick you've ever executed on a wave? Like in your opinion, you were like, man, that took a lot of skill and man, that was a proud moment.
I would say, I don't know. It's tough because I mean, a barrel for me is always like the best. Like,
yeah, what's that like getting pitted?
When you get a barrel, you're just like, that was insane. Even though I've done some good airs and stuff like that, and it feels cool when you make it, but when you get a really good barrel, I think you're just like, that kind of beats everything. It's just, you're just it's so much goes into it. Like you got to pick the perfect wave, be in the perfect spot. You got to read the wave really good. And then, I don't know, being in the barrel is just like, it's pretty hard to describe to somebody who's like, if you've never gotten a barrel, like you're in, it's just like,
it's like a glass room.
Yeah,
almost.
It's like a time warp. You're just in there and it feels like time just kind of stops and you're just like admiring the wave. It's pretty crazy. I don't know. It's something you're always chasing as a surfer. Like
getting pitted.
It never
brah.
gets old. Just get pitted, bro.
Yeah. I love it, dude. That's the line right there. Dude, I appreciate you, bro. This was awesome, man.
Thank you for
having me. You've got a really
me.
cool story, and you're going to keep representing SoCal. And I know when Scotty first started talking about you, he was like, dude, you got to check out my bro, Jake Marshall.
Scotty Q.
Scotty Questenberry just signed with the Texans. But, dude, best of luck, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you guys.
Keep doing it, bro.
Hoping for a big season from the Bolts.
Oh, dude. We're going to get you out to game 1. Have you been to a game in SoFi?
I haven't been to SoFi yet. So
okay. Well, your season ends in September, so you can catch
there.
ours, dude.
That'll be perfect. I'm excited for you guys this year.
Dude,
probably the most excited for the Chargers. This is going to be a big year, I think.
Dude, we have a great quarterback and we got a ton of good pieces on defense.
I know you guys signed JC off my squad. I was pretty bummed.
So did you were rooting for the Patriots when we played?
Yeah.
Played them last year. Gosh, dude.
Sorry.
Well, when you come to a Chargers game, you have to wear a Chargers jersey.
I'll wear a
I'm going to get
Chargers
you one of
jersey.
my jerseys.
There we go. I'll wear it.
Okay. All right. Sweet, bro.
Sounds
Signing
good.
off.